That long list behind me is a ranking of economic freedom around the world, compiled by the Fraser Institute of Canada. At the top, Hong Kong, and then Singapore, New Zealand. The United States is number 6, close to the top, and that's a good thing for us, because countries that have economic freedom are good places to live. At the bottom of the ranking are lousy places to live. Zimbabwe, Venezuela, the Congo. I don't want to live there. I don't want to live in any of the countries at the bottom. Those are places where government dictates just about everything. So people are not free to choose. People in those countries suffer. 30 years ago, when Milton Friedman wrote this book, he explained that economic freedom is the route to prosperity. The 30 years since showed that he was right. The countries at the top of the economic freedom list got richer. The ones at the bottom stayed poor. So we know what works. Economic freedom, free trade, rule of law that protects property and leaves individuals free to make their own choices. Those principles help more than 1 billion people lift themselves out of the misery of poverty. It's a wonderful thing. Still, billions of other people still live in horrible, poverty-ridden places because their idiot rulers won't give them the freedom to choose. And even here in America, foolish people keep pushing big government's the answer to poverty and inequality. It won't work. That was obvious to Milton Friedman when he stopped by a welfare office 30 years ago.
Nobody spends somebody else's money as carefully as he spends his own. Nobody has the same dedication to achieving somebody else's objectives that he displays when he pursues his own. For the people who administer it, it instills in them a feeling of almost godlike power. For the people who are supposedly benefiting, it instills a feeling of childlike dependence.
Yes, it does. And even Congress understood that and passed welfare reform with great success. But then, why? 30 years later, do so many people still turn to government? Why don't they get it? And why also would they be so angry at sweet Milton Friedman that at the Nobel Prize Awards, some people booed him? Because economic freedom is counterintuitive. It is instinct to think that big government will help the poor, and that the opposite, leaving people free to choose, will create places where the rich crush the poor. But the opposite is true. Look at that chart. In these countries where people are mostly free, even poor people live good lives. By contrast, in those countries, life sucks for most everyone. Economic freedom really matters, and because of that, I started a charity, Stosselintheclassroom.org, that gives school teachers free copies of my TV news videos that try to explain what free markets do. That's not something that's often taught in today's public schools. And here are 3 of the 12 million kids who watched them. Let me ask you, was it fun to watch these things in class? More fun than listening to your teacher, at least?
Yeah, it was.
And how about you? Any part of it fun?
Yeah. In one of your clips, the government was subsidizing ethanol, which made the food prices go up, and that was an unintended consequence.
Well, I hope I pass something on to students like them. It took me much too long to see that economic freedom and limited government make people's lives better. Milton Friedman understood that long before the rest of us did, and he was wise about much more than just economics. But before others saw the harm of drug prohibition, Friedman spoke out against the drug war.
Remember Prohibition? In a burst of moral righteousness at the end of the First World War, when many young men were overseas, the non-drinkers imposed on all of us prohibition of alcohol. They did it for our own good. But where did it lead? Prohibition didn't stop drinking, but it did convert a lot of otherwise law-obedient citizens into lawbreakers.
Long before others saw the harm in socialism and central planning, Friedman saw the danger and warned us about it, even when the goals were good, like achieving equality.
The society that puts equality before freedom will end up with neither. The society that puts freedom before equality will end up with a great measure of both.
Milton Friedman didn't just care about money. He cared about freedom and the dignity of the individual. We owe him a lot, and I miss him a lot. And that's our show for tonight. Thank you. See you next week.